Hello and welcome to Maiden, Matriarch with me, Louise Perry. My guest today is Tracy Vaillancourt. She is a professor at the University of Ottawa and a specialist in bullying and mental health, and particularly how girls bully one another and female intra-sexual competition. We started off by talking about what sports teams reveal about how girls and boys are aggressive to one another. Tracy's also a sports coach, so she can speak from experience on this. Why attractive girls are particularly likely to be the victims of bullying, particularly when they come to a new school. Why ultra-competitive women often find it more difficult to make friends, and why women really dislike sexiness, overt sexiness in other women. In the extended part of the episode, we spoke a lot more about bullying, including what schools can do to protect girls and boys who are particularly at risk of it. That extended version of the episode can be found at louiseperry.substack.com, where you can also find, as always, the whole back catalogue of extended episodes, the bonus episodes I do fortnightly with my husband, and the MMM chat community. Enjoy. Many of you will know that Christianity is a subject of fascination for me, and the role of Christianity in shaping the modern world is a theme I return to again and again on the podcast. My view is that we can't really understand ourselves or understand the world around us without getting to grips with it, which is why I'm very glad to put you towards a new online course called 321. It's an introduction to Christianity that's imaginative, thoughtful, engaging. It assumes absolutely no prior knowledge. It's presented by the wonderful Glenn Scrivener, who has been a guest on the MMM podcast previously, and I've also been a guest on his show. Glenn presents 8 video-led sessions, which are based around some beautiful animated stories that illustrate the Christian message. You can check it out for free at 321course.com/MMM. Just enter your email, choose a password, and you're in. There's no spam, there's no fees. Just visit 321course.com/MMM. Tracy, can we start by talking about, so I want to talk about female intersexual competition. I want to talk about teenage girls. And I've heard you speak about your, one, research on this, but 2, your personal experience in relation to girls playing sports.
Mm-hmm.
I find this so interesting. As a girl who used to be in like all girl sports teams, you know, the unique ways in which girls relate to each other in that environment, which are really quite different from how boys relate to each other. Can you explain more?
So one of the things, like, I've coached boys and I've coached girls, and I primarily now only coach girls and women. So I'm the head coach for the U17 provincial team for Ontario. Ontario is the biggest province in Canada. So it's like a really good team. Most of our girls end up on the senior national team, really high performing women. They're excellent in everything they do in their lives. But they make a lot of social comparisons. And one thing I've noticed, even if I'm dealing with that high stream, you know, the high performance stream, or even if I'm dealing with like more of a grassroots type of team, girls don't tolerate tall poppies too well. So boys, the best player on the team is the alpha, is the most dominant person. They tend to be the leader. They can bully others with impunity. Like, they're so goal oriented. They're so driven to succeed at any cost that they'll tolerate this. Whereas girls, it seems to be the social comparisons drives jealousy. And then that jealousy then gets repaired, and it gets repaired by either, and that's not a healthy way of repairing it, but oftentimes it gets repaired by tearing her down. So what we've noticed, where I've noticed, and we've actually studied this and published a paper on this, and I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of coaches. In fact, I just gave a keynote on the weekend to over 600 coaches on this topic, is that when a girl is succeeding, there's just no tolerance for it. And so that girl becomes vulnerable of being bullied. So we'd think that the best player on the team would be somebody that they look up to, and that, just like on the boys' side, but it's not at all the case. Now, there'll be exceptions for sure. I think when you get to the elite level, that's not quite there because they're all superstars. But in youth development systems, that's what it looks like.
So is this how do the girls get torn down? Is it like group organizing against them? Is it individuals acting in indirectly aggressive ways? Like what kind of techniques do you
All
see
of the
going on?
above. So a
Okay.
lot of times it'll be about, and it's not just the girls, the moms engage too.
Oh
So,
my goodness.
so the girls will talk about her behind her back. They'll exclude her. So, if we go to a tournament and they're going to the mall, the one clique is invited, is going together and she's not invited. They'll have group chats and she's not included. But there'll also be the derisive body language, the ones up, or the prolonged stares, the looks of disgust. And really, I think what they're trying to do is manage that upward social comparison that doesn't favor them, like they're not meeting the mark. And then they do it in a really problematic way. So some will turn that against themselves and become anxious and depressed. But more often than not, the healthier way of doing it, which is unhealthy to the person who's targeted, is to tear her down.
Mm. Yeah. Surely this really undermines the team.
Absolutely. It's interesting because, so at the top level, so Carly Lloyd is a professional soccer player. She just recently retired. She's a bit controversial. She had a very, very productive career with the U.S. national team. She won the MVP of the Women's World Cup. She's a gold medalist. She's a FIFA World Cup champion. And in her book, she talks about how when she went into camp as a young player, she actually felt like people were working against her teammates. So like not wanting her to shine, so not passing her the ball when they should, and that sort of thing. And we'll see that too. Whereas boys are really like, get the ball to the best player and put it in the back of the net and let's get on with it. And girls are like, no, let's keep this a little bit even and don't think you're so special.
Girls sort of imposing this egalitarianism.
Yes, exactly. Like we really have zero tolerance for tall poppies. I wrote this. There was a book actually called "Tripping the Prom Queen," and I think that's so well said. And we also wrote about this phenomenon. So we like women to know their place and girls to know their place. And so in the context of sport, where you could really see if somebody's doing better than others, they're getting more opportunities, that sort of thing. But I think that's why I can see it more readily than in other places where maybe the hierarchy isn't as obvious, or the distinction between who's doing better and who's doing worse isn't as obvious.
Do girls do this to each other in other contexts too? So the I don't know, most academically successful girls, or the girls who are most popular with the boys, or what are the other hierarchies that girls will try and
So we do it in all contexts. We absolutely do, but it's not probably, it is a little bit more subtle. Again, I think in sport reveals character. You're kind of raw. You're exposed in a lot of ways. So I think it's harder to self-regulate those emotions, but it absolutely happens. So I'm a university professor. I primarily work with young women. I see it there. It's really interesting how competitive they are with one another. And so like the bulk of my work as a professor is really making sure that we support each other and that we don't create these hierarchies and these cliques, and really getting them to understand and buy in that if we work together, we will go further than if we, peg ourselves against each other. So that is like, I work so hard on social emotional in my lab and in the context of being a soccer coach. That's where my energy goes, instead of tactics or teaching them how to run analyses. Like I'm just trying to get them to all manage this inherent competitive streak that they seem to have, and just work towards a common good and a common goal.
um to what extent are girls and women okay, so sticking with girls for the time being, because I want to talk about how things change as we get older, but just thinking about girls, um to what extent do they even realize that they're doing this? I'm thinking back to when I was at school and remembering a girl who was in my sports team, and she was really great. Like she really was the best, the best athlete, and she wasn't very popular. And my memory was that it was because she was annoying. I don't remember anyone ever expressing resentment at her being so successful or whatever. I don't remember ever feeling that way. But were we kidding ourselves? Was it actually that we were just resentful because she was really good?
So it depends what you value. So if you identify as an athlete and in that sport domain, and she's exceeding and excelling, and you're not, and you want to, and that's what you value, then that's going to be a problem. But let's just say she was a basketball player. I'm like a solid 5'2.5". There's no way that I'm going to even spend my energy on a comparison with her, because I'm never going to excel in that sport. It's just not my domain. So I could let her have it. I could be generous, but it's when you value it and it's when you want it. And then somebody's in a sense thwarting your ability to get what you want, or that perception that they are because they're doing better than you are, then that engenders jealousy. And then that jealousy has to be managed, because that's how you maintain your self-esteem, right? So like if everybody who you compared yourself against and you didn't meet the measure, they were always higher than you, that would really challenge your self-esteem. But we tend to, on average, have good self-esteem. And the way we manage that and the way we maintain high self-esteem is to manage these social comparisons. And we'll even go down the road. So let's just say, Louise, you and I are both like very good soccer players, and we play very similar position. And I'm going to let that one go, because I'm going to then go down the next little category. And the next category is, well, I think I'm whatever better than you on this category. And then now I've just kind of repaired myself on how I felt icky about that other part. So we tend to go down the road until we find something. So for example, as an academic, I've been pretty successful. I've published a lot. I have a lot of grants. I have a lot of great students. I've done well in this domain. But sometimes I meet women that have done better than me. And I'm a competitive woman, and that sometimes bugs me. And the way I usually repair it is like go down the list. Oh, well, she doesn't have as many kids, or, her area of research is a little bit easier to get published in, something like that to fix it. And I'm like acutely aware of this, and yet I'm still doing it. And the mental calculation is so quick. Like I'm doing it on the spot, on the fly, and then I'm feeling good again. So at first I'm not feeling good, and then I've done some repair work, and now all is good again.
So it's not something that we can really train ourselves out of.
I think we could train ourselves out of not making the social comparison so readily, and be more generous and allowing, people to excel. So we have like this perception a lot of times, and it's not just a perception. There's some truth in it. There is resource scarcity when it comes to women and girls, right? So historically, we haven't had as many opportunities. And so we've been fighting for more limited resources. And how do you get past that, the fact that this has been going on for generations and generations?
And I guess some of these things are sort of positional goods. So there's only one best soccer player on the team, right? There's a degree of competition you can't get rid of.
Well, like when you look at team sports in particular, there could be multiple really good players because there's different positions that are occupied, but there's only 11 starting positions. So it's a zero-sum game embedded within a team culture. And that's hard. So again, when I said I do a lot of work on social emotional with the girls, because remember, I'm coaching the girls that are going to go on and play in the Olympics. I'm coaching the girls that will represent Canada in a World Cup. And so their dream is to get to the top. And I'm a caretaker of their dreams. So I'm really trying to get them to sort of manage their emotions so they can be the healthy and performing well. But the truth of the matter is, Louise, if you're a better left fullback than I am, you're the one going to the Olympics before I am.
I don't even know what that position is, so I think you're safe for now. But
you know what? It makes me like you more that you don't, because then now I don't feel competitive in that domain against you.
So you talked about managing the girls' social and emotional health. What does that look like? What are the sort of things that you're telling girls who are going to be struggling with these competitive feelings?
Well, like there's a lot of things I talk about. So one of them is I talk about managing their social comparisons and to not be hyper competitive and to focus more on competing to excel. So instead of me comparing myself always to you, compare my performance to my performance and try and get better. Like I could be motivated by somebody being really exceptional, but really like if I spend my whole time ruminating about them, I'm not going to be successful. So really focus on yourself and how you can better yourself. The other thing they could do is like work on their perfectionistic standards. So perfectionism is really problematic. There's nothing actually positive about it. It's portrayed positively because it's, in a sense, confused with conscientiousness, but nobody's ever had a perfect game. Nobody lives a perfect life. Nobody is perfect. So quit trying to achieve perfection. It doesn't exist, and be generous with yourself when you're just learning and you're going to make mistakes. And then the next thing I always emphasize to them is like, what is your end goal? So if your end goal is to play for Canada, the United States, the United Kingdom, well, I guess it would be England. And, if that's your end goal, know that today isn't going to be the determining factor of tomorrow. It's not this perfect linear process. Today is going to determine it to some extent, but today you're working out the kinks. So like, really be brave in the moment. So sometimes, for example, some girls will just focus on their right dominant foot because they want to be successful. But if they were brave and developed their left foot, they would be going further. But in the immediate, they need to be perfect. In the immediate, they need to be the best. But if they could just let that go and think about what's my end point and then work towards that end point, then you could be brave. Then you could be creative. Then you could develop in a way that you wouldn't necessarily develop if you did it the other way. And then you will succeed in the end. So just keep in mind that getting to the top is messy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what do you do as a coach if you see, how do you protect the tall poppies when
The
you see
tall
them being torn
poppies.
down? Yeah.
So I make sure we celebrate everybody's successes, and I also role model humility and the acceptance of mistakes. I do that as a professor. I do that as a coach. So I just make sure that we all recognize that. And then I also make sure that they manage their social comparisons. So at the end of the day, I make sure that they understand that, okay, so maybe this kid got called up to the senior national team, but that doesn't mean that you're never going to get there. So let's just be generous with this today. Let's celebrate her success and let's work towards getting you there as well.
Are there also practical things one can do in terms of, I'm thinking of things like the ability that girls have to torture each other with things like WhatsApp groups and all this cyber communication. Are there things you can do that try and ameliorate that as well? Because I think also people are more vicious when it's not face to face.
Totally. I think that, it's interesting because some coaches have said that they won't let their players have WhatsApp groups, that sort of thing. I think we can manage that by saying if you have a group, everybody in the team has to be included. Like that, so that could be a team policy where you don't have these little cliques, you don't have these little subgroups of conversations on Snapchat or WhatsApp or whatever. So that could be imposed. Another thing that coaches tend to do, and again, I'm kind of trying to balance that I coach high performance athletes, but then not everybody does. That's kind of like a privileged few. But one of the things that coaches tend to do, and this is problematic, especially for girls, because their need to belong is more pronounced than it is for boys. Not to say that boys don't care about belonging, but girls really care about belonging. I don't let them pick their groups. I don't let them pick their partner. I manage everything. And then by the end, you've kind of transformed your team where they've worked with everybody. They see each other as a team, not as a direct competitor. And then they're better. If not, you're going to have the same kid over and over who's left out. You're going to reinforce the problematic cliques, the two alpha girls, or God help you if it's a triad. That's the worst combination for girls groups. And then next thing, you're going to be vulnerable as a coach too, because they'll go after you when you don't play them.
Mm. How do boys differ in this regard, thinking about the same age group playing sports?
So boys make these comparisons as well, but they kind of let it go. They don't ruminate as much. That's been shown to be true. So there's not as much rumination. They're also kind of, they understand the hierarchy way better than girls. Like girls groups aren't hierarchically organized as much as boys groups are. So boys kind of know where they sit in the hierarchy and they're willing to accept it. You could just see it by the way boys use nicknames, and nicknames often convey something that's not so positive. Like if you're called lefty, it's probably because you don't have a left foot and you can't kick with your left. Can you imagine calling a girl something like that? Like it just wouldn't work. Like she'd be destroyed. So I think they understand the hierarchy. Studies have also shown they're better at letting it go, whereas girls keep it forever. So like I can remember, who did me wrong in grade 9 on the soccer pitch, and I'll never forget it. And I know that that's true of my girls because like we'll go to a tournament and then they'll tell us about how this girl did her wrong when she was 12, and now we're at 17, and they still remember. When I'm with boys, they're just like, whatever. Girls tend to also stay on the same team, so then it becomes more entrenched, whereas boys move teams a lot more. There's more fluidity. So, I think we could learn a lot from them in this domain.
I have an old friend who calls this list of historical grievances her bitters.
So you see what I mean?
I do. What's going on here evolutionarily? Why is there this very marked difference?
I think from an evolution perspective, it comes back to, this resource scarcity. And then also this like combination of needing to get along to move ahead, which was really important for girls and our offspring, like girls and women and our offspring. Because, I needed you to support me. You needed me to support you, but I also needed to get a few more resources than you. So it makes it this like really weird thing where we need to belong, we need to get along, but we can't, when we don't get along, we're circuitous in how we manage it. And then so we do sort of like low level harassment instead of like right in your face, that sort of thing. So that I think is the evolutionary mechanism. It's really linked to resources and also the fact that we historically have bared the greater responsibility for parental care. We were vulnerable when we were pregnant. We were vulnerable when we had young children. We needed support from women, but we also didn't all get the same resources. Does that make sense?
Yeah, whereas I guess with men, well, thinking particularly about sports is such a great analog for warfare and hunting groups and so forth, and which would be all male historically. And they can't, in that kind of high stakes environment, you can't mess about with all of this false egalitarian stuff, I
Oh,
guess,
no,
right?
no,
Like,
no. Seriously, if
yeah,
you've got the best shot, take it. We're not going to be like, is it really Louise's turn to shoot the enemy? Like, no, you go out, you butcher them to death, and then we get on with it if you're the best person for the job.
yeah. So
Yeah.
men they will just respect and defer to the genuinely most skilled player, warrior, hunter, whatever it is.
Yes. Well said.
Yeah. I mean, I can't, without wanting to go into details, right? I've worked in or been involved with all female, like professional settings a few times in my life. And I have reached the sad conclusion that they don't work very well, that it's really, really hard to have to set an like no, there are some things that all female groups do brilliantly, particularly if they contain women who are related to each other, like looking after children being a prime example of that, getting together with your female relatives and friends and all caring for each other's children. Great, we're really good at that. What I don't, at least in my experience, know that women are so good at is having some abstract external goal and working towards it as an all-female group. It just seems that this tall poppy stuff, this false egalitarian stuff, always intercedes, or does it not? I mean, what are the ways? If anyone listening works in an all-female organization and has noticed some of this stuff going on, are there things that one can do to improve cohesion?
It's so complicated. And I mean, that's basically the last chapter of my book is how do we fix this, right? So we had, we have women that have contacted us. We've done interviews with tons of women. some in really prominent positions. Like, for example, there were problems with the Women's March in terms of leadership and knocking down tall poppies, and women who felt that they were being bullied by other women who are marching for women.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you've ever read the essay. I forget the name of the author. I think maybe she was just pseudonymous anyway, in Ms. Magazine, that was about trashing.
Yeah. So and it comes back to, I think, when society is more egalitarian and when we have more equity and parity, then I think we're going to be in a better position. But in the absence of society changing, because it's not going to change overnight, there's some places that are really good. I lived in Sweden for 2 years. I'm married to a Swede. We know that that country has, like, really, it's very progressive in terms of how women are represented in power, although they still have these issues there too. I think that what we need to do is really sort of work on this, back to that end goal, like that we can share the spotlight, that we can be generous in this moment, and that it'll come around to us in time. We can also be generous knowing that maybe people weren't generous to us. So, I came up in a time when I think I'm that first generation where women really did support my group, but not all women. But I still have colleagues who are like, nope, it was tough for me and I'm not going to help anybody out. Like these women will be better served if they have to work through it hard, right? And I don't agree with that model, but that still exists. So all that to say, I think that if we could be more generous with each other and recognize that just because you win doesn't mean I lose, that there are resources to go around. They're not as scarce as we are thinking they are, or maybe that our innate brain, like that part of our brain, thinks it is. And then just kind of always working against that. We're working against something that I think is in a lot of ways automatic. And so just kind of thinking it through. Remember I said, like, I'll make that social comparison in the immediate to fix it, but I could also like reflect on that and just be like, okay, hold on, why am I triggered here? Like, so why can't I just be generous? Like, she's doing well, that sort of thing. And then I think another thing that's really true of girls and women, and this is not just my opinion, there's empirical research to support this. We're a little too sensitive and we need to toughen up on that. I don't mean like toughen up for being treated poorly, because I never will accept that. But I don't have to agree with you. And not agreeing with you doesn't take anything away from you, right? Like that you should be able to accept that we're going to be on opposite sides for some topics. But what we tend to do is we get offended, we give that silent treatment, we withdraw. Like when you look at girls groups and women's groups, they tend to align almost perfectly on most topics, and when the topics they don't align with, they avoid. Whereas men and boys are a little bit more open to, like, yeah, no, you're talking shit. Like, that's so wrong. And they're like, okay, move on, right? So we could be a little bit tougher, I think. And then we won't have these interpersonal conflicts that we have, because so what if you don't agree with me? I'm going to defend my position. You're going to defend your position, and we're going to move on, and we're still going to be friends.
Yeah, it reminds me of Helen Dale, writer and lawyer who's been on this podcast a little while ago. She told me once about it. Helen's very direct, and she takes an unusually masculine approach to these issues. And she told me about a time when she was working in a law firm, and she noticed that there were two women who were peers and were competitors, and they were undermining each other and doing all of this stuff. And in doing so, they were also causing problems for the firm. And classic Helen, just took them aside and basically said, I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I can see what you're doing. Stop it, and just kind of called it out, which is so rare actually for people to, I mean, it sort of takes a woman to notice it.
Yes.
And it's rare for a woman to, having noticed it, then address it directly, because that's not normally how we operate.
Probably what happened is those two women then became friends and can't stand her.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because what's really good for women's unity is a common enemy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's a very. Are there certain personality traits that lend? Because I've certainly noticed there is a lot of variation in how competitive women are, how eager they are to tear other women down. Like let's call it bitchiness for want of a better term. I don't know if there's a better academic
Well,
term.
I use that in a publication. So I
Okay,
think
yeah,
it's a scientific term. I coined it.
cool, and we know what it means. Um, what personality traits feed into women being more or less bitchy with one another?
So hypercompetitiveness is a really important trait. So different from that personal development competitiveness. So in our studies, we find that over and over again. Women who use indirect aggression, which is this bitchiness, tend to be also make a lot of social comparisons, like make tons of social comparisons. And some people just do that more than others. They also tend to be a bit higher on narcissism, and they're really high on Machiavellianism. So they're interpersonally exploitive. So they're using this as a strategy to get ahead at the expense of somebody else. So there are some personality factors, and this is what I'm exploring in earnest with my former postdoc, Dr. Ann Farrell. So we've looked at this a lot. We've published a lot of papers. So I'm quite interested in how this unfolds and who is more likely to use indirect aggression.
Do women get nicer about this as they get
We
older? I mean,
do.
yeah, oh, good,
We do.
okay.
Yeah. And so, what's really interesting? So, I have this study that I just submitted. And one of the things I forgot about when I was doing my lit review is that women care less as they get older. So, we don't make as many social comparisons as we get older. We don't get as offended. We just don't give a shit as much. And that's what a lot of women say when they approach 40 and 50, that it's quite liberating because they don't care about the opinions of others so much. It's interesting because a lot of times I think men think that women dress for men, but we don't. We dress for how other women are going to perceive us, right?
Of
And
course.
you just don't care, right? I wear track pants to work now and I don't care. So that part's good. So there is like that. And so these things are just not as important. And I wish I had my brain today when I was 20. Like, I would have been formidable. I would have been so sure of myself, so generous with others. I would have been a really good person. But that's not where it is when you're 20. Like that's kind of like you're peaking in intra-sexual competition. So yeah, no, it does get better in that sense.
Does female intersexual competition peak at that age because female fertility also peaks at
It
that
does.
age?
It really lines up to that. So like it starts ramping up in middle school and then, it continues up until let's say around early 30s, no more than that. Then we see a nice decline.
Everyone gets nicer. Is that because it's adaptive for competing for mate, or is it adaptive for caring for children?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's again back to, the competition is a bit more extreme. The resources matter more. Remember, we talked a lot about like, if it matters to you, then it becomes personal. So I think all of those things kind of factor in.
And the thing I do always find amazing about being on the inside of this kind of culture is how much self-deception there is. No one thinks, well, very few people think of themselves as bitchy.
So, this is a cognitive mechanism that we use that's not just specific to women. So it's called moral disengagement. Albert Bandura came up with it. And basically he was trying to understand how it is that you could have that many German psychopaths who, participated in the murdering of 6 million Jews. Like, how is that even statistically possible? And so basically he came up with this really good theory that's robust. It's been shown to be true. It's a really strong mechanism when we look at bullying. And we all do it. So what we tend to do is we tend to think of ourselves as good moral people. And when we do crummy things, we justify our egregious acts to make them more palatable. So we might say, well, the athlete in your school that you thought was annoying, we'll say that. She was, it's not that I'm jealous of her. She's just so annoying. We'll make advantageous comparisons. So, like it's not like I created an online fake profile and defamed her reputation. All I did was like it, so those sorts of things. So I compare myself to somebody who's doing something worse. So we tend to do that. And we're really good at it. The other thing too is that it's really interesting is that people who think they're morally superior to others tend to be higher on narcissism and tend to use more indirect aggression. So because like you think you've kind of set the moral tone that you're the authority on morality here, anybody who has an indiscretion is therefore punishable. And one thing I've always found ironic is that so my work I think resonates really well with women. Like we talked about that at the beginning, that people won't be privileged to the first conversation we had, but we talked a lot about how this has good face validity because you've lived it, I've lived it, that sort of thing. But there's this group of like feminists who can't stand me and can't stand my work. And I identify as a feminist. But what they tend to do is like, what my worry is and what I've kind of addressed in the book that's coming out called Mean with Simon and Schuster is that we're good at being generous provided we like the person and we like what they stand for. But as soon as they do something that we don't stand for or we don't like them for whatever reason, then it's fair game. We can tear them down. That's moral disengagement as well. And then there's the impression management. Like that whole virtue signaling stuff, like I'm so nice. You know what? BS. Like in the right context, all women act like jerks, just like in the right context, all men act like jerks. Our study, I don't know if you saw it, Louise, where we did like this like sexy confederate study and we had her come in and like she was like, everybody was annoyed with her. Everybody.
Explain that to the listeners because that's just an amazing study.
Okay, so what we did was like, I saw this all the time. Like, so women are really intolerant of sexy women because there's like a bit of a norm violation. Like you can be sexy, but not too sexy. So I went about to look at this in an experimental way. We had women fill out a survey, 1,100 women. We measured how much they use indirect aggression, that sort of thing. And then we brought them back into the lab with a stranger or with a friend. And we said that they're going to come in and talk about how women get along. So, that sort of thing. Good cover story. And the lab was set up where we had one room, two chairs together, and then the back room was where we were filming them. So we told them we were always going to be filming them, but we didn't tell them we'd started the cameras right from the beginning. And so what we had was a confederate, Lisa, who is gorgeous, like absolutely stunning. In one condition, she would interrupt them and come to the back room and then ask my PhD student a question and then leave, dressed conservatively. And in the other one, she was sexy as heck, like tiny, tiny little black skirt, bright pink shirt, breasts heaving out, black boots, long blonde hair, like just stunning, and would do the same thing. We had everything calculated. The number of steps she said, how she said it. Like we practiced for months to get this right. So the only difference is how Lisa looks. When she was sexy, all the women except for two treated her poorly. So they did the once up, the looks of disgust, which Jamie Krams just showed that disgust, when we see it as women, that we see that that's actually contempt. So the looks of disgust, sometimes they said things before she even left. Like one looked her up and down and said, "What the fuck is that?" Another one implied she was there to have sex with the professor. And the two that didn't respond to her in a negative way, I think were just not paying attention. And then some of them were like brave and said it straight to her face and couldn't self-regulate. And others waited until she was done. And then even if they were with a stranger, they would look at each other and then just start laughing. Because that's what women do, right? We convey how we feel as we do that pretend laugh, like everything's so great and everything's so funny. And yet we're just being total jerks. So that was robust. And anyhow, so that study, I can't remember now what we started with the question, but anyhow, that's the study. And
how did they respond to her when she was dressed conservatively?
They didn't
Were they positive or just neutral? Oh, okay. Yeah. Despite her being super beautiful. So it was just
but she had
dressed.
A ponytail, like you would have to like really look to see kind of thing. They just didn't pay attention.
Is there a lesson there, a dark lesson, but a lesson nonetheless for women who do, and I want to go on to talking about bullying as well in relation to this, but women who have a tendency to attract dislike from other women. And there could be a whole bunch of reasons for that, but one reason that can arise again and again is the tall poppy problem. Does dressing modestly, particularly if, say, you're very beautiful, does that ameliorate that? Is that like a tactic you can use to try and make other women like you more?
100%. And it's so unfortunate. So my study's been replicated in many different countries, and study after study always shows the same effect, like that women are incredibly intolerant of sexy peers. And so, yeah, so you can downplay how you look, but then why are we debasing how we look? Why can't you just dress the way you want to dress and not engender this negative response? So again, we call ourselves feminists. We say that we're all for the sisterhood, but God help us if somebody's cleavage is a little bit too revealing, then all that goes to hell, and we end up like just going for it. It's interesting. This weekend, I was at a dinner party, and one of the women came in, and wow, like so sexy. And the rest of us were all modest. And it took me a second, and then I remembered my own study, and I was like, okay, hold on, Tracy. I was like, oh, you look so good. Like,
And you borrowed some of the insults that your stage participants had used, yeah.
I was like, the whole time I was like a little like, and I found it quite interesting, but I also found my reaction was interesting because it was like automatic. I was like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing. This is how we're dressing, and so inappropriate. I mean, of course, I didn't say anything. I like masked my emotions, but I had that moment, and I study this, and I should know better, and I still felt triggered.
Is it again one of those things that's more pronounced in women at peak fertility and then declines? Are older women more tolerant? Yeah.
It will be, yeah. There's a bit more competition. Exactly. And it's interesting too, because like, again, why do we care? But it's because about resources. So that's how we frame that study, was just about like, this perception that they're cheating then. If they kind of go past the line of what we've all established as a group, okay, so this is going to be the norm. And now you violated that norm by like stepping out and like, no, this is how we're dressing for this dinner party. And you're showing up like that. Like, I thought we already agreed upon informally, or not even like, we just know that that's not, but that's not what happened, right? So we are incredibly intolerant for that, but we'll justify it as a norm violation. Like, like, oh, well, it's not professional to dress like that. Like, why even do that? Like, if you had enough confidence in yourself, you would just wear something modest. But who cares? Like, why do we care? Why are we policing what other women wear?
Comparing again with how men do this, my impression is that men are more tolerant of, say, men who are boastful.
Yes.
Particularly if the boastfulness is justified and the man actually is very accomplished. They don't seem to mind male peers being boastful, whereas women really don't like that in each other. And I think maybe like it less in men as well. That's just my impression. I don't know.
No, there's science to support that. So we did a study with my former doctoral student, Adam Davies, and Stephen Arnike, and we looked at what men gossip about and what women gossip about, and men gossip about their accomplishments and women gossip about other women.
Men gossip about other men and women a bit.
A little bit, but
at least when I'm in the room.
Like on average. I mean, I'm giving you the, So that was the theme. So they tended to talk about like what they've done and how they've accomplished. And we were just like, why is she such a bitch? Can you believe what she wore? Yeah.
Yeah. Except I guess one exception would be, I'm thinking of Richard Wrangham's work on the goodness paradox, this idea of an important thing in our evolutionary history once we developed language was men ganging up on like tyrannical alphas and killing them. I mean, there must be examples, right? If men will accept leadership from a man who is genuinely accomplished, but they won't necessarily accept leadership from a man who is abusing his power or doesn't deserve it, or
okay, so then explain Donald Trump. Because
yeah.
that does not fit. I mean, there'll be exceptions for sure. I think that it's like you kind of cross a line eventually if people get tired of autocratic leadership and then they turn against them, but they're pretty willing to accept it. So it's just striking that we have Donald Trump still running for president after all of the things they've done wrong. Like there's no way a woman would ever survive those scandals. There's no, yeah. So I think that men do like autocratic leadership.
Oh, it's not so much that they dislike Well, I mean, so Trump is an example, right? He's clearly grossly incompetent in certain ways, but he has a kind of charisma. He has a kind of authority. He's clearly strikes a non-trivial number of voters as having justified authority. I guess I'm thinking more about a man who's in a position of leadership that seems weak, but seems cowardly. The episode is not over. There is another maybe 30 minutes of content, but it is behind a paywall. If you would like access to that content, if you would like to show support for the show, paid subscriptions are what keep it on the road. Allow me to pay my producers, put food on the table, all that important stuff. The extended version of the podcast is available at my Substack, louiseperry.substack.com. That's where you can also find, as I say every week, bonus episodes, extended episodes, the MMM chat community, all of this. Please sign up for a paid subscription. It makes such an enormous difference to my ability to keep producing the podcast and grow it even bigger, produce more episodes, all that good stuff. There are other ways that you can show your support for the show as well. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. You can like us on YouTube. You can tell your friends and family how much you like the show. If you find it valuable, all of these things make an enormous difference to our ability to keep making it. Thank you so much.